Welcome to the August 16th, 2018 edition of the BitcoinNews.com radio show. We cover the full spectrum of blockchain, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin news. We talk about some of the biggest stories from the day, each and every day, forever. You can count on us being here. This is your host, Space Marine.
Good evening, everybody. This is your co-host, Space Your Dad. And Bitcoin price is at $63.50 at this time of the evening.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. Bitcoin's price is at $63.50. It's been bouncing around a lot all day. It's gone as low as $6,200, as high as $6,500. It's a good day for people that trade on the fluctuations in the market to make profit. But overall, it's pretty stable. It's gone as high as $6,600 in about the past day before today. And it was much lower. It went down to $5,870 at its lowest. And $5,800 seems like a really good support level. About 4 times already, long term, since it crashed from $20,000, Bitcoin has bounced off the $5,800 support level. So I think if it ever gets near around $6,000, even like right now where it's at $6,300 about, this is a great time to buy. It might not ever get lower than this. And once it gets higher than this and starts rallying, it's going to go way up.
And for our first story of the evening, Bitcoin ETN exchange trade node is trading live in US. Space Marine, go ahead.
Correct, Space Cadet. This is some really good news. There was an exchange-traded note, ETN, in Europe for a long time now. This exchange-traded note that's now available in the US has been in Europe and Sweden since 2015. It's going to be available for trading under the ticker symbol CXBTF. And yes, it has a ticker symbol. It's available for all the traders in the world now, or at least United States traders. And they could buy it like any other stock. And this provides a great way for investors to buy Bitcoin. Although there has been some news, we're just going to talk about this briefly. Some people have said that they've tried buying this through their brokerage firms, but it's blocked right now. I mean, it just came out, but these brokerage firms have some anti-Bitcoin elements, it would appear. Not surprisingly, perhaps, there's people in the establishment that don't want Bitcoin to succeed because it's the best form of money. It's better than the US dollar, and this has major implications for the future of the world. Bitcoin will take over the world, and it's going to be very painful for fiat currency to collapse for everyone. But people that get into Bitcoin in time will succeed, and perhaps these firms don't want people to get into Bitcoin in time. They want people to stick to the USD because the longer people stick to the USD, the longer the old financial establishment keeps their money. This exchange-traded note is from Bitcoin Tracker 1, and it's listed on Nasdaq Stockholm in Sweden, and it's settled for Swedish krona and euros internationally. So when people trade it for USD, it's actually going to be settled in Europe still. But to them, it'll just be settled to USD, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. The cool thing about this is the company in charge of this exchange-traded note actually buys Bitcoins every time someone buys a contract. This is like a derivatives contract. It's a security. And people buy the contract, and then the company that's in charge of it, which is named AB, that's all their name is. It's AB. They buy some Bitcoins. And this is a big deal because it's a direct connection between people buying this and the Bitcoin market. So when people buy this exchange-traded note ETN, they're actually going to affect the Bitcoin spot market, which affects the global Bitcoin price. And this is something institutional investors in crypto, and actually the crypto space, even people that aren't institutional investors, they were hoping for something like this for a while. It's not the best one because it's a little diluted. It's in Europe. It's settled for foreign currency. It seems to be blocked by some of the platforms right now, but I think that's going to fix itself over time. As people demand it, they'll allow it. But to get to the point, this is much like the exchange-traded fund everyone was hoping for, because an exchange-traded fund acts in a similar way. It'd be listed on the stock exchange like this ETN is, and then institutional investors could buy Bitcoin with a click of a button on all the platforms. It's just like that. I think people are going to have to look for it a little harder, though. It's not going to be really listed on the exchanges, but they could buy it for their brokerages and through the platforms with a little research. So it's not the easiest yet. It's not like you could just go through a list or it pops up on the screen. You got to know about it and then find it. But at least it is a regulated, safe way for institutional investors to invest in Bitcoin, so we're getting there as far as the institutional investment infrastructure goes. This ETN has the potential. I have no idea what the volume is now, but it would be really cool to track the volume going on with these ETN, because if the volume starts increasing a lot, then we'll know this is affecting Bitcoin's global spot price. And the more volume, the more people buying it, means Bitcoin's price overall will go up. It would take lots of money going into it to cause that, but institutional investors have way more money than the whole Bitcoin market cap. The Bitcoin market cap's just over 100 billion now, maybe like 110 billion. Institutional investors trade trillions of dollars worldwide. Tens of trillions, even like hundreds of trillions when you come to the derivatives and debts and stuff. So yeah, this is very positive news for the Bitcoin world. And it kind of it settles the market a bit, makes them a little happier after the catastrophe of the Bitcoin ETF being rejected by the SEC. The SEC rejected both the Winklevoss Bitcoin Trust ETF as well as the Solid X Van Eck Bitcoin ETF. They stalled that one, but it's going to be rejected anyways. They're going to stall until 2019, then probably reject it. I don't know for sure, but it's very likely. The SEC will not approve any ETF, but the SEC does not really have control over ETNs, apparently. Or if they do, they don't have control to stop them. Because the thing with the ETFs is you have to make a new law. The SEC has to make a new law for each individual ETF, regardless of if it's about Bitcoin. For each ETF, they got to change the law because it wasn't in their original laws to have ETFs. But ETNs, apparently, it's a lot easier to get them. So now there is one in the United States, and the SEC wasn't able to block it. On to our next story.
Reality Shares launching $100 million hedge fund.
Yes, Space Cadet, they're launching a crypto hedge fund to be specific, and this is the important point. There's actually 466 total crypto hedge funds in the world right now. And these are hedge funds that invest in cryptocurrency startups. They try to do trading, they try to bet on the prices going long and short. And before 2017, there weren't that many, but in 2017 and 2018, hundreds of crypto hedge funds have launched, and some of these are putting fairly large amounts of money in. Like this new one by Reality Shares is going to put $100 million into the crypto markets. Right now they got $25 million, but Reality Shares is actually the person that launched the first blockchain ETF exchange traded fund in China. They launched a ETF in China for blockchain. They made $100 million profit for themselves in the first 2 months already, let alone all the people that invested in it. So they have plenty of money. This will hit $100 million as projected. And they joined the long list, like I'm saying. There's 466 crypto hedge funds, but they're in the top 100. Only about 100 crypto hedge funds invest $100 million or more, even less than that. And I've already wrote stories for Bitcoin News, for Galaxy Digital, Benson Oak, Andreessen Horowitz, Lightspeed Ventures, Autonomous Partners, and Grayscale Investments. These are all brand new, pretty much, crypto hedge funds. I'm not sure if Grayscale is brand new. I think they are, actually. So yeah, all these are new crypto hedge funds that are investing hundreds of millions of dollars. Some of them invest over $100 million. And these crypto hedge funds are important. The real important thing of these is it's like infrastructure. Even if there's nothing on the stock exchange like an ETF, we have the ETN now. But these crypto hedge funds, institutional investors can go to these crypto hedge funds, at least the properly made ones, and I think most of them are probably properly regulated and licensed, of course. So institutional investors can go to these crypto hedge funds and put their money into crypto in a safe way with a real broker that's an expert. And I think this is actually like the ground game that no one's talking about. There's tons of crypto hedge funds popping up. Who cares if an ETF didn't get approved? There's all these crypto hedge funds that are willing to invest people's money into crypto and blockchain. But especially crypto, that's what we're talking about right now. There's plenty of other blockchain startups too, which is kind of different. But although sometimes blockchain and crypto, there's like no real dividing line, because often blockchain companies have their own crypto to make money. That's usually a common thing, actually. Not to get sidetracked, essentially this is like the infrastructure needed for institutional investment. Right now the market's low and it's been dropping. Once a rally starts, this will be infrastructure for institutional investment to pour into the crypto space. So once a rally starts, investors are going to start going to these hedge funds, making profits. They're going to tell all their friends, and then it's going to accelerate the rise of cryptocurrency. So everything's really getting set up for a nice big rally in the future. But it seems like we hit that bottom, 5,800. We hit it like 4 times now throughout the year. Once we start getting off the bottom, there's no guarantee how long that'll take. We might keep bouncing off 5,800 for months to come. Who knows? Bear markets last a long time in Bitcoin, or at least stable markets. It's not really bear anymore. It's just been like stable. Back to the point. This is like the ground game. Like the ATMs, there's Bitcoin ATMs, and that's like the ground game too for Bitcoin. It's making all these points of exchange across the world for Bitcoin, which can increase the demand and increases the usage of Bitcoin, the user base, the demand. So we got Bitcoin ATMs helping the ground game. Now we have crypto hedge funds helping the ground game, and I think it's all about the ground game. Big, huge institutional investors aren't really what made cryptocurrency and Bitcoin big in the first place. It was normal people that aren't brainwashed deciding this is the best currency, Bitcoin. And then they were buying it. Just a bunch of small people all put together had a big force. And that's what's going to continue to happen. Middle class people are going to start getting into it with these crypto hedge funds. And maybe there'll be some big institutional investors, but for the most part, the institution hates Bitcoin. And what it means by the institution is like the really rich companies. They're already making so much money on other things, they choose just to hate Bitcoin because their expert brokerage manager or whatever is telling them that Bitcoin sucks, it has no value. It really does have value. And there's lots of people like Warren Buffett say Bitcoin has no value. It's rat poison squared. And the CEO of Pantera, and I'm actually going to write an article about this, said, if Bitcoin is rat poison, then the banks and the financial institutions are rats. And I agree with him. Yeah, it's rat poison if they're the rats because it's going to kill them. The USD is going under, but Bitcoin's not killing it, actually. The USD is totally killing itself, and thank God we have Bitcoin to save us when the USD dies. At least we'll have something to transact with. That's not heavy like gold. Yeah, we could have started transacting gold when the USD collapsed, but you'd be carrying that everywhere. It'd be really heavy. It'd be horrible, and people would be robbing each other. No, Bitcoin's an easy, secured way, and it has intrinsic value from its cryptographic security. Not even the most powerful supercomputer can hack through Bitcoin. It's efficient. You can send it anywhere in the world instantly to buy anything. It gives banks to people that don't have banks. Like the unbankable people in the United States, I think it's awful. Banks totally don't give bank accounts to any felons or people that have a bad credit history. So there's millions of people, not tons, but millions, that don't have banks, and Bitcoin gives them a bank again. Bitcoin's not popular yet enough so they can buy food at the store with it, but they can actually go to the ATM now and get the Bitcoin ATM and get some money out. So yeah, Bitcoin's quite bankable, and the Bitcoin ATMs represent, and this is the interesting part, like a bank will have their own sort of ATM. They only have a few of them. Bitcoin has Bitcoin ATMs everywhere. It's like one big bank for unbankable people, and normal people too. Just to summarize, crypto hedge funds are increasing. Reality Shares is a new crypto hedge fund, and crypto hedge funds are building the infrastructure for the next big rally because a wave of institutional investment will come through these hedge funds regardless of a Bitcoin ETF. On to our next story.
Genesis Mining is terminating Bitcoin mining contracts.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. Genesis Mining is one of the biggest cloud mining firms. They once put a billboard up in front of Warren Buffett's office, making fun of him for his stance on Bitcoin because Warren Buffett hates Bitcoin. So they put a billboard up, I forgot what it said, trolling him for him hating Bitcoin. So they have lots of money, they have lots of customers, 2 million customers, but they're terminating all their open contracts because they had contracts before that were kind of perpetual, I think, or something. I don't really know, but the contracts that didn't have a term, they're terminating all of them because Bitcoin mining became unprofitable. And they say they used the best equipment, and they've been doing what they can to lower the fees, but the profits from the Bitcoin mining is less than the maintenance fees. And this is somewhat due to Bitcoin's price declining from $20,000 in December 2017 to about $6,000 today in August 2018. But it's mostly due to the difficulty increase because a lot of Bitcoin miners and people that weren't even Bitcoin mining bought lots of Bitcoin mining rigs when the price went up to $20,000, and they got them later. There was a lag. So the Bitcoin hash rate has been going up like continuously until about now. It went up to over 50 exahash per second. I wrote an article about that on bitcoinnews.com. So yeah, it went over 50 exahash per second briefly. It's like just over 40 exahash per second. This is like a tremendous amount. An exahash is 1,000 times more than a petahash, and a petahash is 1,000 times more than a terahash. And Genesis Mining sells terahash mining contracts, so they're relatively small compared to the Bitcoin network, but they're still pretty big compared to the past. In the past, 1 terahash per second was like the entire network. Now Genesis Mining is selling them for $285 each, and then there's a 14-cent per day maintenance fee. And 1 terahash per second produces 27 cents, I calculated on one of the calculators in the article. You can read this article on bitcoinnews.com about Genesis Mining canceling the contracts, and I linked to it. So yeah, it produces 27 cents per day without the electricity, but then the maintenance fee minus 14 cents, 13 cents per day of profit. And they charge $285 for each of these 5-year contracts, and these aren't going to be terminated. So yeah, they're terminating all the open contracts, but they're letting customers buy the 5-year contract for $180 instead of $285. At $285, it takes 6 years to break even for the 5-year contract. So this kind of illustrates how cloud mining's not really that good, and it's never been that good. Cloud mining's good if Bitcoin's price goes up a lot like it has been. Like there's people mining on CEX.io that weren't making much money at all at the time, but then Bitcoin's price went up like an order of magnitude 1,000% or a bit more, and like suddenly their small bit of change that wasn't even worth it became real money. So this could happen. The people could get the contracts with Genesis Mining for $285 and never really break even now, but in the future they could end up having a lot of money from the little bit of Bitcoin they mined with these terahash per second contracts. But as far as like profitability goes with the current calculations of Bitcoin's price and difficulty, these mining contracts are not profitable. Even they reduced the maintenance fee to 14 cents. It was higher before apparently. So yeah, when they reduce it to 14 cents, because you're putting more of a down payment, so they take that away from the maintenance fee, it's still not really profitable. It's not going to break even. And the best thing to do if you're Bitcoin mining is to get your own equipment, but not even that, because there's people reselling the equipment like crazy, and people get scammed a lot buying Bitcoin mining equipment. You gotta be real careful if you're buying mining equipment. The best thing to do is really like do your research, find like the cheapest one possible, but then it will probably take forever to arrive. Bitcoin mining companies actually tend to mine with their rigs that they're selling. They mine while it's the most profitable, and then they send it to you after a couple months of mining with your rig, and you won't even know. You'll just know you've been waiting. So most of the mining firms do that. The best thing to do is to actually group up with people. Like there's people on Bitcoin Talk that group together and buy the equipment wholesale from the best provider like Bitmain. They'll buy like wholesale, and you can get in a group and buy wholesale, and then you can actually be profitable probably even in these conditions. But yeah, the best thing is to have your own rig. Cloud mining has always been really bad. Cloud mining contracts have been getting canceled since the beginning of Bitcoin mining. Well, since the beginning of cloud mining. Like CEX started to outright like just shut off their whole part of the site that was cloud mining. They were the biggest cloud miner. They're still around too. They're like a Bitcoin exchange now, but they totally messed up all their customers that were for cloud mining. Hashflare shut down their cloud mining recently. I wrote an article about that on bitcoinnews.com. And Hashflare actually resumed their services because there were some death threats to the owner. So he decided it's better just to spend some money and lose some money on mining maintenance fees than to die.
Well, the payouts were lower than maintenance for 28 consecutive days, so that also caused it to shut down.
Correct, Space Cadet. Yeah, they have a 28-day policy at Hashflare, and they actually went over that, and then they shut it down, but then they put it back on because they were scared for their life, I think. I don't think they really found a way to make it profitable. Same thing is going on with Genesis Mining. Thanks for that, Space Cadet.
No problem, Space Marine.
Just another point on how Bitcoin mining difficulties increased. I didn't really get to the point with the data. Yeah, people have been buying lots of rigs since it went up to 20,000, and now they got them, and now their hash rate's at its highest. The hash rate causes the difficulty to increase, and the difficulty determines how much Bitcoin you get per hash rate. The difficulty was less than 2 trillion when Bitcoin hit $20,000. Now it's 6 trillion. So it's gone up like hundreds of percent since Bitcoin hit its peak, even though Bitcoin's been going down the whole time. So this combination of Bitcoin going down plus the difficulty going up has been awful for miners. And I heard one expert say, I think it was actually Arthur Hayes from BitMEX, he called Ethereum a shitcoin, but he also said this in the same statement. He says when all the Bitcoin mining machines, when the miners hit an equilibrium, like some people start turning off their machines and the hash rate stops rising, that's when we really hit the bottom for Bitcoin. That's when we'll find out we're at a bottom. And it's actually leveling out right now. It's not really going up anymore. It leveled out somewhere between like 40 and 50 exahash per second. I don't think it's going up anymore, really, because the price is too low to support that. So yeah, basically the difficulty's gone up so much that it's not profitable for miners to expand their businesses anymore. And I would say this is a very bad time to get into mining. There's always the chance that you'll buy a miner, you'll mine a small amount that's not profitable now, though, and then Bitcoin will go up in the future. So that's true. So yeah, maybe you should buy a miner if you want to. I should not say you should not, because Bitcoin is going to go up a lot in the future. Some people are saying it's going to hit 100,000. Some people are saying it's going to hit 1 million. I do think it's going to hit $1 million per Bitcoin, but that's just my opinion based on all the stuff I've read. Because Bitcoin's going to be the only currency. So eventually it's not even going to have a price. The USD will be gone, and it's just going to be Bitcoin. And we'll determine how much Bitcoin's worth by how much like milk you could buy per Bitcoin, you know. It's going to be based on a market basket of goods, like with the CPI. But it's not like the CPI, but what I'm saying is like we're going to determine Bitcoin's price relative to oil, relative to milk. It's not going to be relative to USD anymore. Bitcoin's just going to be the only currency. So the price of anything else is going to be determined relative to Bitcoin. So prices aren't going to really matter in the future. And that's a good reason to get a miner, even if it's not profitable now. Just build up a little stash of Bitcoin for the future when fiat inevitably collapses. On to our next story.
Bitcoin Taproot will make smart contract anonymous. Space Marine.
Yes, Space Cadet. Gregory Maxwell is developing Taproot, and his goal with this is to make smart contracts on the Bitcoin blockchain indistinguishable from normal transactions. Right now, Bitcoin smart contracts are done via multiple signatures. It's called a multi-sig transaction, which requires multiple people to sign the transaction for the Bitcoins to be sent. And there's Bitcoins and addresses that require multiple signatures, and if you don't have every single one of these signatures, you'll lose the Bitcoins forever. Like if someone dies, God forbid, then you lose the Bitcoin. They're actually creating something called MAST, M-A-S-T, which stands for Merkleized Abstract Syntax Trees, which allows a customization of the multi-sig format. So you could put a time limit. Like if someone dies, God forbid, you could set a limit of like 1 year, and then you could access the Bitcoins without their signature, stuff like that. And there's other options to make it more of an effective smart contract. Because right now, smart contracts on Bitcoin are rudimentary. It wasn't really meant for smart contracts, but they figured out how to have multiple signatures. So it works for that anyways. The best blockchain and cryptocurrency for smart contracts is Ethereum. the smart contracts on Ethereum are so good that you can build entire decentralized apps with the smart contract technology. Bitcoin's not like that. I bet some people have tried to make apps with Bitcoin, decentralized apps, but they're not as good as anything with Ethereum. Ethereum is way more complex and built for that. But Greg Maxwell is trying to make these smart contract transactions, these multi-sig transactions, look like a normal transaction with Taproot. And it's named Taproot because smart contracts with Bitcoin look like a root where it has a main channel and then there's little alternatives branching off. So it's kind of like a root system with the smart contracts on Bitcoin. That's why he's calling this Taproot. And it'll make smart contract multi-sig transactions look like a normal transaction, whereas now they stand out really bad so people can figure out what's going on with your contract, because every Bitcoin transaction is published on the blockchain, which is accessible to anyone. That's one of the good things about Bitcoin, but it's also bad if you're trying to hide business dealings, and Taproot will help you hide them. Unfortunately, Taproot is not ready. Even though it's totally coded, Bitcoin has to be updated for this to work. They need to install the MAST, the Merkle Abstract Syntax Trees. It has to be installed into Bitcoin's code. I think Taproot they actually have to install too. And they also have to install Schnorr signatures. And Schnorr signatures are very good. They're a lot better than the normal signatures used right now. And Schnorr signatures are needed to mesh multiple signatures into one signature, because that's what Taproot does. It takes the multiple signatures and puts it into one signature so it looks like one signature without multiple keys. So it makes it into one key. Yeah, that's exactly what Schnorr does. It takes multiple keys and puts them into one key. And you need that for Taproot to work to make it look like a normal transaction. So Schnorr is not there yet. MAST is not there yet. And Taproot's not installed yet. They're going to have to install all these at the same time for Taproot to work. And installing anything into Bitcoin's code is usually a big controversy in the community. Like, SegWit was needed to make Bitcoin more scalable. SegWit increases the block size on average to 1.2 megabytes from 1 megabyte, sometimes up to 2 megabytes, because they changed it from units to bytes, or bytes to units. So SegWit was very controversial because there was a part of the Bitcoin community that thought the block size could be fixed a different way. And they formed Bitcoin Cash, and it was a huge fight. And now they have 32 megabyte blocks, which is totally not going to work. If they actually did have 32 megabyte blocks, right now their transaction volume is so low, they're not going to ever need 32 megabytes. They use way less than 1 megabyte. So it's kind of hilarious that Bitcoin Cash was like, oh, we're going to make one that's even better for scaling. But like no one uses it compared to Bitcoin. So their blocks are like 100 kilobytes, not even a megabyte. But back to the topic, making any change to Bitcoin is very controversial, so they're trying to put like 3 changes at once just to make smart contracts look like normal transactions. The Bitcoin community might not go for this, and if they do go for this, it's going to take some time. And how this works, the Bitcoin core developers have to agree to put the thing in the repository in a new version of the Bitcoin core software. They have to put the Taproot, the MAST, the Schnorr signatures all at once, and they have to agree on this. And then people have to adopt it. Like, in the past, they all agreed on SegWit, segregated witness, which increases the block size a bit. But then part of the community didn't agree with it, so they didn't use it. That's how it works. It's a freedom of choice. Bitcoin's decentralized. No one controls this. These developers pretend that they control Bitcoin, kind of, but they don't. You can mine any version of Bitcoin and use any version of Bitcoin that you want. And there are many different versions of Bitcoin. I think there's over 50 forks of Bitcoin now. The biggest one's Bitcoin Cash, and that was over the SegWit debate. But another fork could develop from this. Quite possibly. It's already happened with Bitcoin Cash. Why not another fork for when some people disagreed? Like, there might be some sort of problem with Taproot that I don't know, but I have no idea. But there could be a problem in the code that someone doesn't like, and they can say, hey, this is going to destroy Bitcoin. So they'll say, oh, this is going to be called Old Bitcoin. Because I think there already is like a Bitcoin Classic. And if there isn't, they would call it Bitcoin Classic, etc., etc. So basically, Taproot is cool. It makes the smart contracts look like normal transactions. I don't particularly see how this is such a big deal. I don't think someone's going to be scanning through all the blockchain transactions, there's tons of them, and look for a particular smart contract. But I guess it's a good feature to have if it wasn't such a big deal to make it. So I think actually, it's like such a low impact for Taproot. Plus, it's so hard to get a change out of the Bitcoin. I don't see if this makes any sense for like someone to fight for this and take up people's time and change Bitcoin for it. But they're doing it anyways, so it's good to know about. Thanks for listening to this edition, the August 16, 2018 episode of the BitcoinNews.com Daily Radio Show. We covered some of the biggest stories for the day, August 16th. But go to BitcoinNews.com for the full spectrum of blockchain, crypto, and Bitcoin stories. We have 10 articles per day, sometimes more. And they're written by expert journalists And if you read BitcoinNews.com, you will be a crypto and blockchain expert in no time. This is your host, Space Marine, signing out, going back to space, going beyond Pluto.
And this is your co-host, Space Cadet. Thanks for listening.